Welcome to the Rock Solid Families podcast. It is just Bridgitte and I back today for Girl Power Half Hour. As I said, this is Bridgitte Price, our adolescent specialist and coach. And I'm Jenna Helton. I am the marketing and administrative assistant at Rock Solid Families. Bridgitte,
sorry, I said great.
Great.
Yes.
Bridgitte, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, so today, every time when we are trying to plan out this podcast, Jen and I are always throwing around ideas. And the topic that came to mind today was decluttering your heart and home. Mm-hmm. I think we've all kind of seen some of those YouTube trends of like, if it doesn't make you happy, get rid of it.
Yeah.
So that kind of like is part of it, but I feel like it gets a little deeper than that.
Yeah. And we all know that we've all heard that there is like that correlation between like your mental status and like your home, like how cluttered or whatever that might be. So there is a correlation there, which we'll talk about a little bit from our personal lives. But before we really get started talking about today's topic, I just want to take a moment to thank our sponsors of this podcast, Maxwell Construction, Casey's Outdoor Solutions, and the Hoosier Ice House. Without them, this podcast would not exist. So,
yes.
Yeah. So we also have a couple announcements that Bridgette's going to talk about. We have some events coming up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I feel like we have talked about previously just having the Families Rock class that happens in Lawrenceburg, and that's actually happening this Saturday.
Yep. So previous Saturday after you watch
this, yes. So anything about timing. So
yep. But the one after that will be April 26th.
There you go. Yes, April 26th. So if you're just looking for information on parenting, how to maybe like better co-parent with someone in your life, and I just feel like there's so many times when I'm working with clients where this just isn't talked about, you know? Yeah. So I feel like anyone is looking for just where can I go to get tips on parenting and different seasons of life. So I would highly recommend checking that out. If this is laying on your heart every time I bring it up, that's a sign you should be there. So reach out to Jenna. But some upcoming events that is also similar to that. We're doing a Families Rock Night at Milan Elementary School in Milan, Indiana on April 2nd from 6:30 to 8. There will be an activity. I believe Kids Discovery Factory is coming and doing an activity for the kids there. So that will be really cool. And then we're offering another one of Families Rock. And this is like we referenced what we do on Saturdays in Lawrenceburg. This is more of a condensed version. And we're not covering as many topics as you would on Saturday, but you still can take away information. So the next one is Families Rock in Harrison and
at Crosby Elementary.
Yes, Crosby Elementary. And it's on April 14th from 6:30 to 7:30. So like I said, both of those are condensed versions, but you do not have to attend Milan or Crosby to go to those. So that could also be a blessing too. If you want to go somewhere where no one knows you or anything about you, absolutely hit up those.
And just to add to that, Bridgitte, the Milan Families Rock one-night course on April 2nd is going to be mostly about managing emotions in the home.
Good.
And the one at Crosby Elementary on April 14th is going to be over parenting in a tech-heavy world.
Awesome. Thank you for adding that.
You're welcome.
Yes. And then lastly, Linda, along with Amber Siegel
and Roseanne Moore.
Yes. All three of them are coming together to offer a codependency class on April 12th from 11:30 to 3 at the Broadway Event Center in Harrison, Ohio. So if you're interested in that, look at our social media or also reach out to us. We can get you more information. But those are three people who do so much for our communities in different ministries that will bring together all of their experience and just education that they know about codependency, because more times than not, like I've been there, you've probably been there.
And I feel like the codependency thing, like it's something that not a lot of people realize that they're doing. So it was like kind of eye-opening, like in the event description. It's like, are you a people pleaser? Do you always take other people's like emotions and like as your responsibility? Are you the one that like always wanting to be in charge? Like if so, that's codependency. So and I know a lot of women in my life, just within my own different circles, that struggle with that. So And I like saw it myself. I'm like, dang, I'm yes to all of it.
Those things.
So it'll be a good time. There's going to be some door prizes and whatnot too. So
yeah. And lastly on that, if you have kids who are in middle school and high school or college, like girls, I feel like I see this a lot with girls. Like go as a parent and learn how to support your child with having a healthier relationship. So we will end on our announcements, but all good things coming up.
Yes. Yeah. So we're going to get into our topic a little bit.
Yes. Thanks.
Yeah.
So as we mentioned, we're talking about decluttering the heart and home. So first off, like we want to help. Jenna mentioned there's usually a connection between like your heart and home. Like, and so I want you to imagine like a picture. Either it's you, someone you know, like where you walk into their closet and it's like, oh my goodness, like.
How do you find anything in here? Yeah.
Like shoes. I've been there. Or you see like walk into someone's garage and it's just like chaos, you know?
Been there too.
Yes. And I feel like, or even just in your house, like I think where I can relate to this is at different seasons. I'll give an example now, but I feel like at different seasons of my life, when I look back now, we've talked about boundaries before, so feel free to reference other podcasts for that. But when I look back in seasons of my life where I had no boundaries, I was people pleasing, like always just like running to 100 things. Of course, your house takes a lot of seat, you know, and my house was a hot mess express. And I feel like I would find things like one of my good friends started just like being more interested in minimalizing things. So she was telling me her tricks and things, and I'm not kidding you, I probably took multiple loads of things to Goodwill or other places. So I live in Batesville, like other organizations there that you can donate to, and I just like, we had been married for maybe 4 years, and it's crazy how that accumulates. But for me, I feel like I was spending all this time, we'll talk about this, Jenna will talk about this next, but like I was buying like everything I saw from the Target dollar bins, you know, because you want your house to feel like cozy and cute and all the things. And so I would say absolutely, like if you can relate to what we're saying, like there was a time in my life where I had no boundaries. I was constantly running all over it, and I absolutely had an overstuffed closet. Our garage, we couldn't park our cars in.
Yeah, been
like,
there.
It just feels like you can't get to any of those things that you need to get to. So the idea we want that stood out to us when we were thinking about this is clutter isn't just physical. It's a reflection of what we value, what we fear, and what we're unwilling to release. So usually if the outsideness is clutter, usually if we reflect on our inside, that's probably needs some cleaning up to do too.
Yes.
So when we release physical and emotional clutter, we make room for God's peace and guidance. So that's what we're hoping you take a lot away from today.
Yeah. And so we were discussing this topic. We kind of asked ourselves, like, why do people hold on to things? Like, what causes, you know, the overstuffed garage or closet or the cluttered countertops, or just, I don't know, like I recently reorganized my linen closet. But like, you know, you just add so much. You get towels, you get all sorts of stuff that you just throw in there. And it's like, why are we holding on to, like, we had full-size sheets and we don't even have a full-size bed.
Yeah.
Or twin size. I'm like, we don't even need these anymore. So I got rid of them. But so we were really like thinking, like, why do people hold on to all of these things? And so one of the reasons was like just misplaced priorities. So that could be like material possessions. You might be like chasing some sort of status by like having, I don't know, like I feel like a lot of people in our parents' generation, sorry mom, have like the precious moments, you know?
Yeah, we have those.
Yeah. Yep. And so, you know, you'll have those, and like each generation has something like that. Like I feel like a lot of people in our generation are like, oh, I still can't get rid of my Beanie Babies.
Yes.
You know, but so you're like, just like that material possession. We're chasing a status or security through those items maybe, or even just like choosing comfort.
Yeah, I think something that comes to mind, like as you're talking to, I feel like I've had people tell me before, like they think that I might be good at hosting or when we have events or something. So I feel like I've really like taken that as part of my identity, and now I need to buy all these dishes or these good things. So then when people come and I'm hosting a dinner, that they feel so seen and loved and everything. And I was like, why? Like, it was good the way it was before, you know? And I think we have people in our lives who do this well. Like someone I know, I remember going and having dinner with them and their wife, and they gave us a gift. Like, did you know hostess gifts are a thing?
Yeah. For some occasions, yes. But yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing. But I remember just feeling like so seen. And someone made cookies because they knew I was coming over one time. And I was like, I will always do this, you know?
Yeah.
But I think I took it a step too far. And we think about material possessions where I was like, but I need to have an Easter plate for cookies when someone comes over, you know?
Yeah.
And like the verse that you talked about, I was like, wait, did you say the verse?
I did not yet.
Yes,
no,
the verse that you're going to mention. That's absolutely where my heart was.
Yeah. So what Bridgette's talking about is Matthew 6:19 through 21, and says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be." And so when we think about that and what we're holding on to, what are your earthly treasures? For some people, it is material things. Some people, it's money. So they spend, all of their time working. They miss out with all of their family, or just time with God and, being still in his presence because they're just so focused on, chasing that comfort or that status or just having like the next best thing.
Yeah. So I'm only smiling when I say this because I think my mother-in-law and some of my family members, maybe my mom and sister, watch this.
Yeah.
And I know they're going to be like, Bridgitte used to do this. Like, so I feel very convicted as we're talking about this. But
and I feel like we always say this on every episode, like, we are not perfect at any of this. Like, a lot of this stuff is just things that we've realized and we're still practicing and trying to get better at too.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
We just hope that you guys can do it with us, and we hope that we're encouraging. Another misplaced priority, that this is one that I feel like I am very guilty of, is busyness as a badge. And so they kind of talked about this, Linda and Merle did on last week's podcast, if you want to take a listen to that. But we're so busy doing that we simply neglect our time with God.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, I can't, sit down with my Bible because I've got to do A, B, C, and D before 12. And then after that, I have, 7 more things to do. And for me, I kind of feel like I feel like that kind of is a status for me. Like, the more I do, maybe the more people will appreciate me.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't know, like if I clean my house 7 times a week, like, which is totally impossible.
Yes.
But like if I clean every day and then like make sure that my kid is in, multiple activities and make sure that lunches are packed and dinners are done, like, then maybe I'll like be successful, or like, I don't know.
I'm putting on the spot when I ask you this, but I feel like, so like before working at Rock Solid, you worked a full-time job and probably more than over 40 hours a week, and then now you're working part-time. And so do you feel, did this change at all when you went from full-time to part-time? Like,
yes.
Yeah. Like, speak to that a little bit, because I'm sure there's moms who have like dropped their hours, or maybe they're stay-at-home moms. Like,
yeah, I feel like it changed in a couple ways. So before, when I was full-time corporate, it was more of, I was putting more of my energy into being a better employee. So working over the 40 hours a week, and then coming home and trying to do it all too without asking for help or delegating tasks, or just even like, I would never take a step back and be like, okay, what is actually like important? You know, and like, what can we eliminate throughout our week to make this easier? And so that really did, like that period of time, I was like, I had high anxiety, and I just feel like I wasn't a pleasant person. I remember when I started at Rock Solid Families and I went to part-time, I kind of contracted before I became like an actual employee, just like a trial run. And I was discussing, once I got the offer, I was discussing the opportunity with my husband, and he said, well, are you happy? I said, yes, I am. And I forget exactly how he worded it, but he basically said that I was a much more pleasant person to be around. Now that I had like time to really prioritize, like, one, my faith, and then like my family, and just like what was actually important.
Yes, because I feel like now that you, like, just from like here like working with you, I feel like now when you have your like 2 days a week that you're not in the office, I feel like you've talked about like you make certain things happen on that day, and the other day might be where you like challenge yourself to rest more.
Yes. Yeah. So Tuesdays I typically like get a lot of my like housework done or errands, and then Fridays I've prioritized time with my husband. So.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm sure that was such like, I'm sure like the listeners can relate to this too, like a period of vulnerability and like stripping off that identity of you when you worked full time and were constantly like working over, constantly like you had to like prove to your boss that you were doing good at your job, to now you're like totally different. And, you know,
and it was weird because I was so busy and like so constantly being like, even if I worked like over my 40 hours, like I had a work phone and I was responsible for taking international calls. So like it could be like midnight and I'm on the phone with somebody in Dubai, you know, like trying to like figure out like they're like, I think it was like 12 or 13 hours ahead of us or something. So I was like constantly on.
Yeah.
And so, but I was like, oh, if I do this call at midnight, my boss will think I'm like overperforming, which she never did, you know, but like, so yeah, it has been nice. Like,
like a pruning season for you, like where your treasure is, where your heart is now.
And it was hard at first to like rip that badge of busyness off because I felt like I was like, less than maybe, I don't know, like I took half the hours and you know, less pay, and I mean, but it's true, like God will provide, and like it was just very apparent that this is where I was supposed to be because I had more with less. So.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And so I feel like that's why I wanted to put you on the spot, because I was like, wait, Jenna has more that she could add to this, because I feel like that's such a true example of like when you recognize these things and like we read a Bible verse like this and it draws it out of us for us to pause and be like, this is bigger than just me being busy. Like this is like my identity and those things. So I will let you. I will not interrupt to put you on the spot more. But
no, you're fine. But and then another misplaced priority is just emotional clutter. So sometimes we might hold on to grudges, past regrets, or unrealistic expectations, which kind of goes with what I just talked about, especially at the unrealistic expectations part. But these become burdens that are hard to get rid of. They block out our peace.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I feel like with Jenna sharing about like why do people hold on to this clutter, like misplaced priorities, and the other thing when we were thinking about this is like the fear factor, like fear of lack. Like I feel like I see this a lot in my grandparents' generation, and you might relate to this too as you're listening to this, but maybe we keep things just in case. And then that's kind of like our way to control when we think about like the verse Philippians 4:19, where it specifically says, and my God will supply all your needs. Like, but I think it's hard because our grandparents, for example, went through that, maybe through that period of time, like through the Depression, where they were used to not having hardly anything, or maybe someone has lost their home in a fire, you know, and now you just feel like either you sway the one way where you're like less is more because I know what it's like to lose everything, or you swing the other way where you're like I need to hold on to these things just in case something happens and we need these. So the fear of lack, fear of change. I feel like we all can relate to that. Like absolutely sure. I do not like change. I feel like it's getting better, but like when what that looks like is why we hold on to that is maybe we don't want to let go of old habits. Maybe we're in a toxic relationship or have friendships, cluttered schedules that feel uncontrollable or uncomfortable. Yes, like, and you talked about that too, but I feel like for me that was what I was talking about whenever I was thinking like my house was all over. I feel like it just didn't, someone else could have walked into my home and felt like it was fine, but to me it wasn't like giving me the peace. Our house is like a gift from God, you know, like where we sleep is a gift from God. So I feel like it should be a place of retreating, you know, and sometime maybe we'll have a podcast where we're talking about Sabbath and what that looks like, you know, but like retreating where we are just having peace in our life. And my house did not feel like it was giving me peace. So because of the cluttered schedule, because of like material things, like having to buy so much, and then I like just look around at where you're at right now too. Your car, my car is a hot mess. Like your car, your house. Like, does it look cluttered? Like, okay, then is it truly giving you peace, or is it making you more anxious because you're like, I have to dust that off? Like, one time I heard someone say, like, and we can relate to this because we have kids. If it takes us more than 10 to 15 minutes to pick up your child's toys or your child to do that, they have way too much stuff.
Yes.
You know, if it takes too long, if it takes a set amount of time to pick up or to even clean your house, like, that you have too much things. So I feel like fear of change. And the last one is fear of losing identity, which we've briefly talked about as well. So do we attach our worth to what we own, what we achieve, or what others think? I think where I relate to this the most is thinking so much about what others think. Like we talked about people pleasing and those kind of things. So yeah, I feel like we've shared a lot of examples, but I feel like now is just like the opportunity you could press pause and just like look around and see, like, is this, when I walk in my home now, I feel like when I'm at work, I crave to be home because I know I can just like, like, you know,
decompress.
Like, so look around and are those the feelings that you have, whether it's like as simple as your work bag? Like my work bag was not organized before, and like we want that piece for you. I feel like we have that now. And something that stood out when we were pulling this together was the quote, "Perfection is a moving target, but peace is a choice."
Yes.
I feel like when we realize that, like, perfection is a moving target, but peace is a choice. When we realize that we have to make the choice to have peace in all of these areas, that's when it happens. But when we constantly are like, oh, I need to buy these things because like people always say my house is the cutest or whatever. Like when we take all those identity things off, like that is always going to be a moving target. We know this. Every time we walk by the Target dollar bin, it's different than what it was last time.
Yeah, so, I feel like that quote too really kind of goes with a book that I cannot remember the author, but it's called "You're Not Enough and That's Okay." And it kind of talks about like how the perfection is a moving target.
Yeah.
And it talks about how a lot of people, especially in our generation, I think the author is maybe a couple years older than us. Yeah. We put our identity into what we look like, or our job status, or what we, our income, and she talks about how she grew up in church and she knew Christ, and then she gets to college and she starts like partying and dating around, and now her identity is more of like based on how like the guys she's dating view her. She developed an eating disorder, and then she comes back and she's like, we're never going to be enough without God. Yeah. And that's okay. Yeah. Like we're never going to we're never going to be perfect. We're never going to, like you can work out until you're your goal weight, but then there's always going to be something more. Yes. Whether it's losing more weight or like having a cuter home, or like you could hit your goal weight of 100 pounds and then you're like, well, I hit that, but like once my house is together, then I'll be enough.
Yeah, it's like that constant strivingness.
Yeah, and then you get your house together and you're like, well, once I fix my marriage, and then, and then it's like, well, once my kids are old, like, once my kids are great at sport, like there's always going to be something more.
I shake my head and like, cause I like have been there. I feel like 2 years ago, I would say like, I was constantly like, okay, with this, then this.
Yeah.
The book author is Ali Stuckey.
Yes. Ali Stuckey.
The book is a little pink book. My sister read it and she gave it to me, and I've not read it yet, but now I feel like I need to. So,
yes. And then there's another author that I love. She has several books that I would highly recommend, is Emily Lay. So she has A Simplified Life. She is a Christian woman. So she does reference the Bible and God throughout her books. But A Simplified Life kind of talks about decluttering your space to make space for God.
Yes.
And then she even has like a little list and like a little action plan in the book to take a box. It's called like the Simplified Challenge. You take a box and you walk through each room. If it doesn't belong in that room, you put it in the box, and you either put it back where it belongs or you get rid of it. Yeah. And I love it. I love doing that. But
yeah, I feel like that too. I remember one of the things that I was reading, like she talked about just like, I want to be able to like sweep my floors. I don't want it to be I have to sweep my floors, vacuum my rugs, then all of this. And I was like, why do we have rugs? And then I just like up and got rid of them, But it was appropriate because our daughter was potty training, and we probably just don't want to keep those anyways. But I feel like it could be something like there's so many resources out there, and absolutely like reach out to us or comment on this, and we're happy to send you the links too. But yeah, I feel like what we hope you take away from this is like stop striving, stop chasing a moving target, and choose peace.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
And it can start as small as your linen closet.
It is. Honestly, it felt so good. So some advice that we just wanted to offer outside of the resources that we mentioned. The first piece of advice I would say is like prayer and surrender. So one thing that I put down was like, God, help me to release what isn't serving you. And then also just like journaling, fasting, whether it looks like social media breaks or just like any type of distraction. So like if it's social media or like video games or whatever like people do, like just fast from those and like take some time to really declutter like your heart and your spirit, but then also your home.
Right. Good. The next advice is eliminate clutter to create time and space to be in the Word and hear from God. So just to sum that up, like when you get rid of a lot of those things, it doesn't take as long to clean it up or to organize it. So right there is like an added 15 minutes that you didn't have before.
Yeah. Yep. And then like you could use that 15 minutes to journal.
Yeah.
Write something you're grateful for. One thing I've recently started doing is not as often as I want to, but sometimes I'll write down prayers. I have like a prayer journal. And so it's really cool to like look back and kind of see what I was praying for and how it's been answered or if I'm still waiting. One of our, check out our website for this, but in the Facebook, Julie, one of the videos, the testimony videos, like she had a prayer wall and I loved that visual. Like she created it, made it look very crafty and, that was so cool for us to see in her testimony video that we shared of all the different things she was praying for, like what you're saying and how they were answered. So it was really cool.
If you declutter, you have time to do crafty things like this.
Yes, exactly. But don't buy too much. Cut it out of like your newspaper or something. And then another piece of advice would just be to be a good steward. Take care of what God has already blessed you with versus focusing on getting more, doing more, being more. Kind of goes back to aiming for that moving target. But contentment comes when we appreciate what we already have. So.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that I still like daily struggle with that. Of like, am I content when I'm like scrolling on Target or whatever, But, and I think God convicted me of that. Of like, I had to delete like Target, Sam's Club, Costco, like all the shopping things off of my phone because I'm trying to not be on social media all the time. So then in return, I'm like scrolling up healthier options. And that's so silly. Like those are grocery store apps, But that's where I wasn't being content because I was constantly thinking of like, well, we don't have this. Do we need this? And
I know.
So now if I need it, I either have to get on my computer and order it, But I know God and we know God works like this too. He will convict you and lay things on your heart as you're hearing this too or after you listen. I
literally just listening to you.
Really?
Yes, because I feel like when I'm on maternity leave this summer, like I like told my husband, I was like, we need a trampoline, like to keep our son occupied. Like we need to buy a trampoline.
Yeah.
And if I was thinking like for Christmas, we would have asked for like more outdoor stuff. And like, I'm like, we already have a play set. Like he's got like a little like rock table that he like puts his cars in. He has like a t-ball thing. Yeah. Like he's got all the water guns known to like every 6-year-old. Like, I'm like, we don't need more. But like as you're saying that, I'm like, he really does have enough. Like we've been so blessed to be able to give what we do have to him.
Maternity leave, weekends. I tend to spend more money on the weekends. Not relax, not doing anything. But
So Bridgitte, what would you like challenge people? So now that we've given them like some advice, what would you like challenge like for them to put into action?
Yeah. So I would say identify your spiritual clutter. If you're feeling anxious, fear, guilt, false identity, all those things. Like I think we've talked about this before, but I went through a season where I really felt like crippled with anxiety for a couple years. And when I look back on that now, I can clearly see like it was so hard for me to keep peace in all my life and even just hear from God. So identify what that is for you and then is our clutter physical or a mental sign of misplaced priorities or fear? So when we talk about identity, anxiety, those are like mental signs that it's a misplaced priority.
Yeah.
When we think about like all the physical things that we might need to get rid of, maybe that is associated with fear of letting go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And my piece of advice would just to be not only to identify your spiritual clutter, but identify your physical clutter as well. Mm-hmm. So like I said, I've read through some of those Emily Lay books, and it really like put it into perspective of like, you know, stuff just gets kind of all over your house. And like we mentioned, that is correlated to where we are mentally and spiritually and just our busy schedules. So I would say identify the physical clutter. Something I've done in the past is like the 3-pile rule. So it's keep is one pile, donate is another pile, and trash is another pile. Yeah. And so honestly, and I'm sure other women have been through this, but like when you go through this process, you have to make a bigger mess before it looks nice. So husbands, don't get on her if, you know, she's got piles everywhere. They probably have, if she's going through this process, or if you are, some husbands do this too. But if anybody's going through this process, it is a process, and you do have to kind of separate things to know what's important and what, you know, is necessary.
Yeah. And I just feel like, I don't know, I feel like God's like putting it on my heart a lot that there's like a mom who's listening to this who might be on maternity leave and just feels like overwhelmed with like all the different transitions in her life. And she wants this, but it feels overwhelming. But I just feel like I want you to know, like, even if you have purpose, like even if the purpose that God is giving you right now is to declutter and create peace in your home, and you feel like it's all on you kind of thing, like God is putting this on your heart because he wants to meet you in it and on the other side of it. Like I can't imagine like what's in store for you when you create that 15 minutes because you're getting rid of all of that stuff, you know, like maybe it's starting a podcast or maybe starting a blog or something, but I know like good will come on the other side of that. So
and then with your physical clutter, I just put be ruthless but be thoughtful. So it does feel good to be ruthless, truly.
It does. I feel like if I'm having a bad day or just a boring weekend, if it's raining all weekend, I will just like get rid of stuff and take stuff to Goodwill because it feels really nice to get rid of things.
It does. And I literally, I've been like nesting, you know, and I feel like I've been so ruthless. And I literally told my husband, I was like, oh, our closets hate to see me coming with a trash bag. Like, you know, like get rid of it. I'm like, if we haven't used it in 2 days, get rid of it.
Yes. I feel like our husband's side of this where they might be the ones who tend to hold on to things. That's a topic for a whole other day. Getting them in the mindset of getting rid of things maybe. But we hope that this has been really encouraging for you guys and that you can just know you're not alone in this because we have been there too.
Yes. Yep. But as we close, we just want to once again thank our sponsors, Maxwell Construction and Casey's Outdoor. Let them know how much that you appreciate this program and the difference that it's making in your life. This was an important show, and we hope that you guys can share it with your family and friends.
Thank you for listening.
Yep. Have a good one.
Rock Solid Families wants to thank Maxwell Construction for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast. For over 30 years, Maxwell Construction has been a leader in turning dreams into realities, building schools, banks, restaurants, and many other commercial and public facilities. Maxwell Construction has made it their priority to not just build buildings, but to build into their community. So if you have any construction needs, call them at 812-537-2200.
Rock Solid Families would like to thank Hoosier Ice House for being a proud sponsor of the Rock Solid Families podcast. In the heart of historic Lawrenceburg, Indiana, the Ice House is at the corner of Vine and High Streets. The historic building evokes a feeling of comfort with spacious indoor and outdoor dining, a large bar, and comfortable dining areas. large enough to host parties, yet intimate enough to feel like your favorite neighborhood restaurant. So thank you again for the Hoosier Ice House for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast.
Rock Solid Families wants to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast. Casey's has grown to be one of the largest and most unique garden centers and gift shops in the Cincinnati tri-state area. Whether you are looking to take on that next landscape project or simply add a little home decor to your house, Casey's has you covered. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Call them today at 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.